Okay. Decided to get back out here and try to find some sheet metal and see if I can get it for, an inexpensive amount. All I need is like a 12 by 12. That's all I really need. Interesting enough, my dog was like not even caring if she came along or not. Not even caring. So I let her stay home. I feel good that at least I got her out once. But it's 94 degrees out. And it's almost 7 o'clock. And it was just a little too warm for me to be sitting up in the house. So I decided to get out and do these price checks. I decided to get out and do a price check because I can make a rendition of what I'm looking for. Plus, I wanted to see how much some other things were priced at Home Depot. And I'm still very much struggling with the idea of throwing away that stuff, even though I have not brought it back into the house. Kind of wish, it was trash day tomorrow. That way I could just put it out to the curb and it's a done dollar, right? It's gone. But now I gotta think about it. I gotta think about it and think about it. And honestly, every time I think about, the notion that, either you step up or step out, and yet, I try to step up. I put applications in, high full-time jobs and, low balling, part-time jobs. But honestly, I just don't, know what's really going on in the world, right? It's almost like it's just, it's a phenomenon. It's a phenomenon what's going on. And really the only reason why it's a phenomenon is because people, I don't know, they just don't know how to make changes. So if I'm talking about myself, the only change that I can see is that, like what a lot of them do is just, leave the country. And even though, even though, you'll be paying for less convenience, you know, you won't necessarily be in a predicament where, you'll just be homeless. I mean, it could happen. It could. But, a lot of people, in America, they're blessed with resourcefulness and skills, talents, crafts, that will enable them to survive wherever they go. A lot of them, and the mere fact that they can't do it here in America, it's almost like very apparent that you're being blocked. And then you have to ask, well, why are you being blocked? Why are you blocking? And there's just no good answer as to why they would block people. There's no good answer why, people on Social Security, they don't even get as much as the people who are on disability get. Okay? So the people on Social Security get less than half of what they get on disability. And they allow people on disability to also work while still getting disability. Whereas a Social Security person, if they're not of full age Social Security, they have to, they get penalized, right? And then I was watching this other older guy, and he was talking about how, they can't even have roommates because under, Social Security, that even a roommate, not your spouse, but because he was talking about communal living, and he said that senior citizens cannot do communal living because that will be considered income. Like, what? It didn't make sense to me at all. But the mere fact that he was saying it doesn't mean, the mere fact that I don't know about these things doesn't mean that that's not true. Because I couldn't figure that out. Why is it? So he gave some examples of say a senior is sharing an apartment with somebody that's on disability. Or then he gave an example of how, the government will reduce their benefits. So y'all cannot believe that Social Security is what it had been intended for 3 generations ago. 3 or 4 generations ago, Social Security was, to assist seniors so that they could retire and not have to be struggling. Whereas now they have made all of these different adjustments on the front side and the back side, right? Such as, the double taxation. Even though Trump said that he was going to stop the double taxation, what came out, through the internet was seniors just got, like a $6,000 credit. On your taxes. So I'm like, my goodness, what was all of the hype, what was the hype about, for another tax credit? Because it's like, even if he wasn't going to tax, the government is the only place that could tax someone, right? And anybody that's on Social Security, not only will they have to have to pay Social Security taxes, which is double taxation, because that's already earned money. But if you are a landowner, you are being taxed, by your city and your state for, and providing government services. Right? And yet, these are the same people who are saying, who object to just a flat tax. Right? Let's just have a flat tax. Right? And I also mentioned that even though the federal government is pulling back, services and funding from, states that want to operate independently and not in uniform or, in alignment with the federal government, what's going to happen there is, you're just going to get taxed from your city and the state. Okay? You're just going to get taxed from the city and the state. Period. So, even though my mortgage costs less than if I was to go out and rent somewhere once a year, I'm still paying, $4,000 a year on property tax and $3,000 a year on public schools tax. So that would probably be, a savings right there. That definitely would be a savings right there because, I'm a senior citizen. I don't have any children. My children are grown, living in the house. So, and I've already been paying, into the school system. Why are they making, anybody and everybody who has property pay into the school system when, some people, they don't have children? And some people had been paying for years, and then they don't get the EIC rental credit like, the renters do. And you can't insure your property for the same amount that, say, somebody can with rentals insurance. So even that right there, the homeowner's insurance, definitely, is a high cost to me, and big deductibles, you know. So I don't know. The more I think about it, the more I'm, apt to believe that, living out here in the world is not worth it. Right? So I'll probably either move out of the country or, not just permanently move out of the country. I'll probably live part-time on the reservation, and then when it gets cold, go somewhere where it's warm. That would be the best plan for me. Go where it's warm in the wintertime, and then come back to the reservation in Washington State. That would be my best plan. Now that I'm thinking about it, because I know I need to make a move, right? I'm just not sure what kind of move I'm going to make, right? I had been thinking about doing the reverse mortgage, and staying put where I'm at, but honestly, even though it looks nice here, right? And even though I don't have no beef with my neighbors, right? None of them are my friends. You know what I'm saying? It's corrigible, but it's not a what I would consider like, an intimate, relationship. Right? Some of my neighbors I've been living with around them for, one neighbor, she's been living right next door to me. Single Caucasian woman living right next door to me for the 25 plus years that I've been living in this house, and we barely talk. I mean, we're polite to one another, but we barely talk. And I don't know what that's about. Don't care, because, if the feeling isn't natural, so be it. Which, it's not. Now, she'll feed my dog bones, milk bones, she'll feed, the neighborhood cats by putting, cat food out there for them. But, as nice as she is, that doesn't mean I have anything in common with her. And it's not that I don't have anything in common with her because I'm a mean person, because I'm not a mean person. So that's what I'm thinking I should do is, only thing is, the only thing is that, I do want to get, fair market value on my home. That's for real. I do want to get fair market value on my home. So, whenever you're trying to sell a home, you have to declutter. You just have to. And I've been in the process of decluttering now for like 5 years. I had, 25 years of accumulating things. And like I said, and a lot of the stuff that I've accumulated, I have, emotional attachments to it, even if I'm not using it. I have bought things I have never used, but had bought it because it was on sale, and then with the thought that, yes, I could use this at some time in the future, but I just have not. So that's kind of what was on my mind, when I had taken that trip back up to Washington State in March, where, I was contemplating on getting on the housing list because they were in the process of building new homes, on the reservation. And I filled out the application, but at the time I did not have my award letter, and I did not have my source of income because I was, I was on Social Security, and I had taken a part-time job. I had taken early retirement and taken a part-time job. But now that I don't have the part-time job, I have to make some type of adjustments, right? I've been unemployed now, let's see, March, April, May, June, July, August. I've been unemployed now completely, except for doing, I had tried to do the Uber and the DoorDash, but I can't do that with this vehicle. This vehicle is, not made, to do deliveries. It's just made for, short local commutes, and, and in any kind of extreme weather, the battery dies down so fast, making it, almost impossible to even gauge how much mileage you will have in any particular trip. And I also, because I drive slow, because the faster you drive in an electrical vehicle, the faster your charge goes down. And I get a lot of hostility and road rage because I drive slower than they would like. So I don't know. Maybe if I was, in Ohio or something, that wouldn't necessarily be as problematic, because they have a lot more older people that drive slow. But I had heard that even that's changed up there in Cleveland, that people are actually speeding. And I was like, no, they're not speeding up there. And she said, yes, they're speeding. I'm like, but because Cleveland has some really narrow roads, and they have parking on both sides of the street, and they have bad weather, incremental weather. And I'm like, they, and their roads be twisting and curving, and, and poor signage, I'm like, that's like, what? So I did get communication from my tribe that they're looking for tribal officers. And I was thinking to myself, I could probably make a good, you know, officer for the tribe. They have hiring here at Home Depot. Maybe I should see if I can work here. Let me do this barcode.